Welcome to this edition of the Grow With Moin Podcast. I am your host, Moin Zafar, and let's get back to the roots. So this is a part 2 of the roots episode I did for my YouTube, and I left off where I was expecting my daughter to be born in April 2017. I was graduating in April 2017. I was also working part-time at a bank in 2017. And so it's all happening in Canada, Toronto. One thing I didn't leave out was that in December 2016, I got married to my girlfriend at the time, Luara, who's pregnant with my daughter. And yes, my mom and dad, they flew over to Canada and we had a wedding. And it seemed like the stars had finally aligned for me. And so in April 2017, I wrote my last exam. I was very excited to finally be a father, nervous at the same time. I was talking to people, figuring out if there's anything, more that I can do to make this place, make this birth, as smooth and as great as possible. And so our daughter, we didn't know whether the baby would be a boy or a girl, so we kept that a surprise. And so she ended up being born 2 weeks later than what they predicted. And so she was eventually born in May 2017, and it was a beautiful home birth. I did a whole episode on it with Luara on my podcast. I think it's episode 2. So if you're interested in that episode and hearing her perspective on the home birth experience, do check it out. So my daughter was born, and I was working at this bank, and I was working there part-time. I had graduated, I had some free time to spend with my daughter. I was excited. In June, the bank offered me an extension on the contract to continue working with them, but I didn't really love what I was doing. And so keeping that in mind, I decided not to take the contract extension, but also, so I had this belief growing up, and this comes from my own childhood because I was mostly raised by my mother as far as, upbringing is concerned. My dad was usually away in another country for work most of the time. So as a child, I always missed him and wanted him to be there, obviously. And so I created a belief at that point that if I were to ever become a father, I would be there for my child. And so that belief played a part in me, not taking a contract extension and, enjoying this new moment, this new chapter in my life. Because, I was just a father now, and I wanted to be there, watching that, baby grow up, basically. And so I stayed home for the next couple of months, and then eventually, the provider instinct, the breadwinner instinct sort of stirred up within me again, and good too, right? So I started looking for another job. I applied to another bank. This was a bigger bank, supposedly, and I landed another job in September 2017. I started working there, and it was good. I was making more money, but a couple months into it, and because my commute was about I'll stop doing this. My commute was 2 or 3 hours every day, 3.5 actually, and with that happening, with my work hours, I would only get to see my daughter an hour every day. And so it was okay for a couple of months, but by the 3rd or 4th month, I really started to feel it. And I thought to myself, well, I'm not keeping that promise I made to myself as a child. And, if I'm working and commuting all the time and not getting to spend time with my family, then what is really the purpose of living this life if I can't be with the people I love, for most of the time? And so I started looking for another job, and I found another bank closer to home. This was about a 20-minute drive. I applied, I got it, things finally seemed to have worked out for me once again. And now we're in 2018. So I started this new job in 2018. And, I did that for a few months. And, a few months later, I noticed that whenever I would get close to work, just entering the parking lot, and I would start to get anxious and feel anxious. And, it happened consistently over, a few months, and it's finally became strong enough for me to consciously start feeling it. And I asked myself, why is this happening? Why am I feeling this way? Things, on the outside, on paper, seem to be perfect. What more could I want? And so I was with that thought, and I continued working. And so my breakthrough came when one day I was at the gym, and I still remember this because it was a powerful emotional incident. I was running on the treadmill, and I finished running, and I sat down and just started to cry. Tears just started to pour down. And at that point, I knew that I wasn't happy working at that place, and I needed to do something different with my life. I knew that. And just based on that knowledge, without having a plan of what to do after, because the emotional charge was so strong, I made a decision to leave the bank. I went and spoke to Luara, who was my wife at the time, and she supported me. And I treasured that. I treasured that support. And so I quit the job. I remember I went out to my manager the very next day. I went up to her, and I told her I wanted to leave. I remember my voice was still shaking at the time, but she was very supportive, and she wished me all the best for the future. And so now here I was back home. I was spending time with my daughter again. At this point, she was about a year, or a little less than a year old. And, I was just having fun, watching her grow up, being with her, helping around the house. And I noticed that whenever I was with her, I started to get insights from her. And these would be things like, so this one time we were having breakfast, and there was a hot piece of potato that she wanted to have. And I obviously didn't want to give it to her because it could hurt her. But she didn't know that. And she really wanted that hot piece of potato, and she couldn't understand why I was not giving that to her. So for me in the moment, I thought, well, if she never knows what hot is, how is she ever going to learn that lesson that, hot things hurt? So I put that potato on the plate, and she grabbed it. And, it hurt that she made this, face, and she's like really shocked. It's like, whoa, what was that? And then after that, she learned the lesson. So to me, those things were insightful. How can you learn something just by listening and not actually learning through experience? So to me, that was the insight, that was the lesson. And, this momentum carried on towards, I was watching her grow up, and she was learning to walk at this point. And, she would stand up, fall down, and, continue trying day after day, hours on end. And, at one point I started thinking, well, I never taught her to be persistent about this. She's born with this innate spirit, with this fire to keep going. She has a goal in mind, and that is to walk. She doesn't care if a billion people around her are doing it. She wants to do it, and so she's going to do it. And I didn't teach her that. So that got me thinking about, the spirit that I was born with when I was a kid, and it was the same spirit. And so I thought about the ambitions that I had and how many times I gave up so easily and why I gave up so easily when this little toddler is not giving up. And so, I started writing these thoughts down, and at the same time I started another business on Amazon, selling different types of things, and that was going well. So, eventually over the course of months, I had enough insights written down where one day I looked at them and I thought to myself, hey, maybe I can write a book about this. And that started a new chapter in my life. So one thing I do want to add, I was a bit comfortable because my dad was supporting me. He had a few years back bought a property here in Toronto in Milton, and me and my brother were the owners, and we were living. So that aspect did help with me, being comfortable with quitting my job. And I appreciate that. I was grateful for that he did this, and I realized that if he wasn't away most of the time, I wouldn't have this privilege. And so, for me to have this privilege, I wanted to make sure that, I've been given this unique opportunity, which not a lot of people have. So what can I do that's different? What can I do that this circumstance is allowing me to expand into? And so, the quitting of the job, the starting a business on Amazon, the idea about writing a book, those things started to come, and I was drawn towards them. And so, I pitched the idea to a couple of my friends. They were excited, and I was excited, and I really wanted to do it. And, I also started working part-time with another small business owner. It was called Alive and Free Hypnosis in Mississauga. And I was really fascinated by the power of the subconscious mind, by the beliefs that we hold when we are very young, and how that can shape our behaviors, our thoughts, and our realities as we grow up. And actually, Dr. Bruce Lipton, in his book, The Biology of Belief, talks about is that children, when they're between the ages of 0 to 9, their brainwaves are in the theta state. Theta is imagination, and theta is also hypnosis. So everything that you're watching, everything that's happening around you, you're taking it all in, and there's no filter. There's no good or bad filter. Everything is being recorded. And when you're a bit older, when you come into, let's say, age 10 or older, your brainwave shifts into delta state. And at that point, you start being conscious of all the knowledge you've recorded, from the ages of 0 to 9. And those beliefs, good or bad, they can become defining experiences of who you become as you grow up. And so I think this is where I want to leave this episode. Actually, I will add that was one of the reasons why I went through, or I was attracted to working at a hypnosis and a chiropractic clinic, because I knew that I had some limiting beliefs growing up and I wanted to shift them. And hypnosis does the same thing. So you get into a relaxed state with a hypnotherapist, and they get you in the theta brainwave state, and they talk to you and they reinforce positive beliefs and delete old ones. It's a very powerful technique, a very powerful mode of therapy if you want to apply and really accelerate your progress towards the next level. So whatever it is you want to do, whether if you want to be, tackle your anxiety or weight loss, and there's tons of testimonials there that people have gotten results, and it's something that actually worked and has been around for a few decades now. So I was working there. I was working on myself and removing these beliefs because I knew I wanted to write this book, and there were things that were going to come up that were going to stop me from writing this book. And so now I was in sort of a reinvention phase at this point. And I think that's where I want to leave it, at the reinvention phase. And the next phase, we'll talk about the book launch, the release, and everything that happened. I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in to this edition of the Grow With Moin Podcast. As always, if you like what you heard, leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon. Take care.